If you've taken really great rainy day photos, but the photos are a little bit too bright and don't quite show the rain that you actually saw in person, you can add a rain overlay to make your photo look like it did in the moment. The first thing that you want to do is darken down as much of the background as possible. Light colored skies, light colored backgrounds mean that the rain overlay will not show as good as it could. So we are just going to grab our lasso tool and we are going to darken this down. So the lasso tool looks like a lasso. We're going to come over to our options here and select our brightness and contrast panel. Now we are going to darken down those trees behind me in the photo. We're going to up that contrast a little bit. And with a soft round brush, which you can get by going up to the top, you're going to click on general brushes and go to soft. You are going to, on the white setting, paint on the darkness in the trees behind me here. And you can do this whatever it's going to look most realistic for you. So if this ends up being too dark, you just lower the opacity and then switch your brush over to black. So you can toggle it back and forth by clicking the arrows, or you can click the X button on your keyboard, and then that lower opacity means you're just removing some of, but not all of, the darkness that you painted in there. Now you can also do higher tree branches, but I'm going to leave that as is for now. I'm going to grab my lasso tool again, and I am going to highlight my sky here. You can see I got a little bit of my umbrella, so I can either hold the Option key down and remove that, or I could leave it and paint it later. So now I am going to go back over to my brightness and contrast panel, and I am just going to darken those clouds down, making sure that they stay realistic. Sometimes when you darken it down, you might get weird colored tints, and you need to pay attention to those. So I'm going back to my brush, switching it back over to white to paint on, and I'm going to bring my opacity back up to 100. And then I'm just going to paint right on over that. Now you can see where I lasso. There's a very harsh line right here. I have to make sure that I am removing that either by painting on more darkness around it, or I'm going to have to add some light in there to make it all blend in. So I am just coming in anywhere where it makes sense. Sometimes it's not going to make sense. You might start painting and it might be too dark in certain areas. So we go back up to our opacity. We are going to lower it, switch it over to black, and we're going to paint it off in just little sections here until it makes sense for how we are going to be creating this. Now I am going to raise this up to 100% opacity, and I'm just going to go over my umbrella to make sure I'm not adding anything that is too dark to that. And then of course if I need to brighten my face, I can also come in here and raise that up in the brightness and contrast panel just to make sure that that is blending just a little bit better. And I'm going to paint over that so there's no line on my neck or in my hair, so that I stand out inside of this photo. Now we're going to add in our rain overlay. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that in, and our rain overlay is going to look like this. It is going to be a black background with the rain. Now, depending on how your photo is laid out, you might want bigger raindrops or smaller raindrops. Because this is not a wide image, it's a tall image, I'm actually probably going to double or triple stack this. So I'm actually going to leave it about this size. I don't want giant raindrops. That would not make sense in what I was creating. So I am going to keep it just like that. And then all I'm going to do is come and change my blend mode. That is right here where it says normal. I'm going to click on that and come down to screen. When you put it to screen, it removes the black background. So I'm going to add it to screen here. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer. So all I do is grab it with my mouse and I drag it down to the little box with the plus sign. And now I've just made it easier to see the raindrops, or I can drag that down, which I am going to do. If it doesn't work properly like it didn't for me, make sure you have unticked the auto select box, and that will just grab the layer that you are on over here. It will not grab whatever it touches. So then I'm going to move that down, and I'm going to put that in between there. I'm going to duplicate it again. And I'm going to drag this down even more until I have the entire thing covered. Now, depending on how you are doing this, you may start to see some lines in here. And if you do see those lines in there, let me zoom in a little bit, see if we can see those. If you do start to see the lines where that ends and begins, so you can kind of see how there's a little bit of crossover right here. Watch that area and turn that on and off. You can see where that goes over each other. Now I'm going to add a layer mask. So that is just the rectangle with a circle on it. And I'm going to grab my brush one more time, this time on a black setting, 100% opacity. And I am just going to paint over where that line is to blend it in. Now you can put these layer masks on all of the different overlays that you were going to put on and just remove those lines so that it does not look like you have those harsh lines there when you are adding them in. Now we're going to look a little bit closer. Where is there too much rain? Where is there not enough rain? Do I want to remove the rain around my face? I can go ahead and figure out which layer that's going to be on. And I am just going to maybe paint off of just where my face is so that it doesn't blur over my eyes or my nose if this were a closer up image. And then I'm going to decide how I want to deal with the rest of this. So let me move this back just a little bit for us. I'm going to put all of my rain overlays into a folder. So I'm highlighting everything and I'm clicking on the folder button. And from there, I can now decide if it's bright enough, if I can see it enough, or if I want to double up by dragging that folder into the duplicate button, the square with the plus sign, so that it's easier for me to see. Once I like how the rain is, now I can come into another brightness and contrast panel, and I can decide if I want to darken that down a little bit, bump the contrast up, so it's very easy to see that rain, and I can change how I'm doing things so that it's going to look the way that I want. Now, another thing is, if I like this, but I also want to indicate that there is rain closer to the camera, I can once again duplicate that layer, and this time I'm going to click Command T. That is my transform button, and that is going to bring the entire overlay up, and I'm going to make it bigger now. So now I've got some blurry things up close. That is going to kind of make it a little more realistically depth for this image. And so I am going to then be able to turn this on and off, and you can kind of see how there's some bigger raindrops and some raindrops that are the correct size for being around the subject of the photo. So you can make these as big as you want to make it look realistic in the image you are creating, but as you're taking an image in real life, you will have rain falling on you. You're also going to have rain falling close to the camera lens, so it's okay to have some of those things obscured in that foreground up close to your image. And when you're done, you have your rain overlay so that it looks like it did in person while you were taking those photos. If you need rain overlays, I do have these linked down below for you so that you can grab these. And if you've got questions, now is the time to drop those. We are continuing with episodes here on the channel to help you level up the photos you're taking. And I'll also, in the caption, make sure that I am linking our Self-Portrait Academy playlist where I teach you how to take photos of yourself by yourself in minutes. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.